the entire series.
I have no words.
Also, I'm not, like I said, so Neeb is up 1, so I guess the top was cut off, and whatever that top one was.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, unorthodox as it is, we're going to be starting down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map. Top the pink Terran player. Put your hands together for
Team Expert Scarlett.
And up in the top right-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Zerg player. Give it up for
Team Neeb.
Goes for a gas and decides not to take it. He's like, no.
Wait a second.
No.
How do you play this race again?
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute. You go up to 18 first. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because these are really, I know for a fact this is like least played race for Scarlett. I'm really not sure about Neeb Zerg. We only have no regret to kind of go on for that one.
The other weird part about this is that Neeb, he plays Protoss. There's not even a Protoss in this matchup. At least Scarlett will have some fundamental kind of deeper understanding of the matchup and the certain timings and small little details of when she would be expecting scouting or trying to move in and stuff. Neeb might not have that anymore.
She went for a gasless expand into a 20 gas.
Look, literally anything is possible right now.
Okay. All right.
We could see 2-port Banshee coming out.
I just find it because, like, you know, at times where they did off race, it might have been during, like, you know, a ton of different expansion, right? Like last time Scarlett decided she wanted to play Terran with Wings of Liberty, which gasless expand was very popular towards the end of it. So I don't know, but I was going to bring up that Neeb did play Terran, though, right? For actually a very long time, and a majority of Heart of the Swarm. Apparently in early Wings of Liberty, he was Protoss, which is something I learned like yesterday. I didn't know that, but he did play Terran for a long time. And even though that matchup has definitely changed, the race has changed, Legacy of the Void, there are still some things I think that he would expect.
Wow, nice pickup over here from Scarlett. Being able to identify where a player who doesn't even play Zerg is going to send their Overlord. That's actually a really big win.
It is really nice. That's good catch. Of course, if he had done any like early pool into like, you know, like 6 lings, maybe that's a mistake. But even 2 Marines wouldn't be that bad.
Is this hatchery kind of early?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Like it's the earlier one you can get in this matchup.
Yeah.
But
Well, we do have a reactor coming down and a factory being thrown down as well. So Scarlett moving into what looks to be a kind of normal-ish mid-game for a Terran player, getting out some of those Hellions, going to put on the pressure with those. And Neeb just send his Zerglings across the map and try and see what he can find.
I feel bad for you, Fear Dragon. This Protoss player is super hype, like Senpai Scarlett, Senpai Neeb.
I was
One's
excited.
a Protoss player, and you don't even get any Protoss here.
There was literally one Protoss player. There was
Yeah,
one
and
Protoss
now
player.
there
They
isn't.
took it away from me.
They took it away from you. Because I was going to say, the fun game to play when people off-race, pro gamers, are just like your friends or anyone, is to see, like, as the person who plays the race, where they notably have trouble that you remember spending hours and hours fixing, that they just haven't bothered fixing, right? I love noting that. We've been doing that the entire series.
All right. Well, I really just wonder, though, what is Neeb going to try and go for? Because there are different styles that you can go for in ZVT generally, and things like Mutiling, Bling, and stuff, I mean, they've definitely fallen a little bit out of fashion, but we do occasionally see it, and maybe we could see that is sort of more along the lines of, I think, what was in the meta when Neeb used to play Terran.
When he used to play Terran, certainly, even 2-base Muta was in the meta, so. But I think that he is practiced enough as Zerg and just watches enough Zerg to know that Ling, Baneling, Hydra is just generally good.
Yeah.
I mean, he actually literally faces it as a Protoss player, just, you know, apply it to a Terran matchup. So I imagine he'll go for that. And honestly, I think the Hydras are just easier to use than Mutas.
That's
for
probably
multiple
true.
reasons, but literally in their control.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for now, the Hellions going to just get pushed back by these Queens over by the 3rd. Looks like Neeb actually has a pretty good defense over there, but Scarlett's going to poke around over to the natural. And we'll see also one really interesting thing we'll be witnessing, how good Neeb's creep spread is, a sentence I didn't think I would ever say.
That's a good question. It's actually getting spread rather nicely now. The Hellions usually don't do very much to deal with this, but it's really interesting is that you brought this up, right? Neeb's not facing a Protoss player, but Scarlett is facing a Zerg, and she knows what's really bothersome, like what she wouldn't do, right, wouldn't have in position. They're also paying attention to her build and going for a Hellbat Liberator push. I think this is like, this was a thing in the beginning of Legacy of the Void, I want to say, because you would protect your Hellbats as they pushed in, but it really just, it died to mass Queens like many other things did. but he's not in position and he's not prepared for this.
The way I would describe Scarlett's playstyle right now is she's playing it like she plays Protoss. She says, what is the most annoying BS thing that exists for this race? And let me just go ahead and do that and frustrate my opponent. Liberators are getting caught by the Queens, but re-siege in a slightly better spot. One Liberator gets picked off, but these Hellbats are really running rampant right now.
The real complication is that even though the Queens could target the Liberators if they were in better position, you know, especially, that means they're not helping deal with the Hellbats. And there are so many Hellbats that those Lings really couldn't do very much. They needed to be supported, which they are not, and Scarlett is doing devastating damage.
Zombie Grub, I don't think you can pull yourself back from this.
I don't think so. Neeb's also just messing up his macro. That's like the worst thing I think is going to happen is that anything she does, I think Neeb will just mess up his timings. Like, it's already hard enough as a pro Zerg player to have your pacing like thrown off, but just imagine someone's like that's not their main race.
Oh boy. Well, Liberators continue to siege up in every which location. Queens are eventually getting to clean up on more and more of these Liberators. More than anything else, it seems like Neeb is able to deal with the Liberators, but
So I'm not really surprised that Scarlett's going into mech, but I just laughed because she's getting 2 extra command centers. Like, gotta spend your money.
Yeah, Neeb could definitely spend some of that money right now. Building up to 1.5k minerals.
Yeah, this is, I mean, as much as I want to make fun of it, right, I think Masa did do this. But he was in a winning position. He thought he was going to win anyways.
It looked very different when Masa did it, Zombie Grub. Let's be realistic.
Actually, no, it didn't. Like, he had done a Hellbat for something, Jon Snow, or was it maybe it was Jim Rising? And then he had made 4 command centers, and I was like, well, he can.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
So she's doing it correctly. But this is also probably a little bit of just miss macro. It's literally spending your money.
All right, Hellbat's being dropped and just trading out versus Zerglings in the main base. And Neeb is, I guess, just trying to figure out what do you do from here? Well, I guess I'll get +1 armor or carapace because I don't have a third. So I got to do something.
Oh, he's got to try and do what he thinks he has to do, I suppose, the Zerg player, which, yeah, you take your third. I would say even double expand considering how many minerals he's holding on to. And he's actually going to go into Mutas. That layered finish, and he's going to go for a Spire.
Well, I mean, the Mutas will be able to deal with those Hellbats, and in low numbers, those Liberators have been being picked off consistently by those Queens, so maybe they can actually handle the Liberators in low numbers.
Yeah. Well, Liberators have terrible anti-air, so
yeah,
that's doable. Also, I actually like Spire coming back into this matchup specifically when it is against a mech player. Early enough, I think it does give you like some decent control, and then you just transition into the usual stuff you would see besides that. So I don't mind it, but I'm not even sure Neeb knows it's mech. He might predict that Scarlett would play mech because it's a little more akin to playing like Protoss, which is a race that she sometimes plays. But he hasn't had any scouting.
Yeah, that might be a little bit of a problem, but okay, we got some Widow Mines in the mix. Man, I am also, every single time I see these small little things, I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually a pretty difficult part of the matchup, splitting up versus the Widow Mines and making sure your Lings don't just all suicide in. There's all these small little details you need to have down.
GG.
GG! Scarlett ties up the series, question mark?
Yeah, apparently. I was going to note that he has some experience splitting against Widow Mines, right? Every race does.
Yeah.
Well,
what I really wanted more than anything else was for Neeb to hold up the buff Oracle signs now.
Just not matter in this matchup at all. So they have to play these races for the rest of the series. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the rule. No, that's the rule. Like, literally, Scarlett asked about Protoss, playing Protoss. Yeah. And we got a clarification that between series is fine, but between games isn't. Like, you can't change your race.
Well, this is going to be fascinating. We might even be having have a discussion about that somewhere in the lobby or with the admin. Oh man, this is a discussion
right now. Awkward.
Neeb's just sitting there like, what did I just decide to do?
I should have picked Terran as my
I have so many regrets. No regret. Giving him a little advice. He's like, look, man, the larva injects could use some work. Could do some creep spread, but most importantly, you didn't make the no regret Zerglings.
I would say next time he'd be like, you know what's really good, bro? Scouting. Seeing an armory is really good.
That's a pretty accurate way of how I imagine No Regret would phrase things.
He'd come over, like No Regret's oddly aggressive, right? He'd be like, scouting.
Scouting.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's that thing.
Stay humble. Sit down.
Well, I guess we're having some discussion. I actually have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
Good deal.
We'll find out.
Good deal. It's just... It's
I don't think the players have any idea what's happening
and
right
the
now.
fans. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. It's definitely going to be interesting. But I think we may even hop to a short little break while we try and figure things out and get the next game set up and make sure we know what the next map is, potentially.
Are we?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
We'll find out.
I'm just going to stay in silence until we find out. Perfect.
I don't think
You
I can
can't
do that.
You
I can't do that.
actually. Just like professional and news, like I can't actually have just dead air for 20 seconds.
What would you like to see from Neeb? What kind
As a Zerg player?
Yeah, I'd like to see some all-ins.
I don't know. I don't have a I can tell you all the things I want to see as Scarlett as a Terran player. But like
Yeah, that's
Zerg,
easier.
Zerg can do whatever they want, all right? Like
Wow, the race balance is coming out.
that's not. I don't even think it's strong, but I think that whatever he does, he just has to actually have good macro. Because as you know, this matchup still is a lot of like the Terran decides what opener is going to harass the Zerg, and then once the Zerg gets to Ling, Bane, Ling, Hydra, then I can balance one all I want.
Yeah, that's fair. Although I still think that like Zerg have a lot of early all-ins. Like we obviously saw the Roach Ravager
They
push
do.
many times. So there's also like the Ling Baneling all-ins. There's actually just pure Ling floods on some maps that
Yeah,
players aren't prepared
some of
for.
them are more like like so you're talking about the Ling floods. Those require I think more finesse than others. Some are actually so timing based that if you don't just play the matchup specifically a lot, I doubt you're gonna get correct. But then again, your opponent's not usually that race either, so their timings will be off too. So I don't know how that would work. But literally, when it comes to like the Roach Ravager busts, I'm not sure that they. Because Neeb's not a very aggressive, cheesy guy. So if he's ever to off-race, I can't imagine he's using it to cheese too often. Sure, like every so often, right? But is that actually what he just plays 100% of the time? So he actually knows how to do a Roach Ravager all-in, build-wise? I don't know.
that's a good question. Neeb doesn't really strike me as the kind of like Scarlett is the person who after like WCS Valencia or like Montreal, you'll find her in the player pit while like the grand finals are going on. She'll be off in her corner and she's just like cannon rushing a laser who already got knocked out of the tournament.
Yeah.
You're like, do you really need to do this right now? Why are you playing Protoss? Why are you cannon rushing people? But Neeb is really not that kind of person.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So I mean, you can kind of like guess the build orders, but for like especially the really early on ones, I think that there's been a lot of cases where I've seen people off race, especially as Zerg, and then get the Overlord timings wrong. So feel like, yes, my Roach Thorn's done. I'll build a bunch of Roaches. Oh no, there's so much supply.
Actually, we could even see Scarlett throw down some kind of older school cheese like the 3X Reaper and stuff.
I hope so. If she just actually plays the oldest school Terran, I'm fine with that.
Because that took a lot of finesse
One
and kind of
base
handling.
tank push, 2010 Wings of Liberty right now. It'll work, trust me.
I don't know about that one. That one might be a little bit harder.
I'd
I'd love a two-port Banshee, though.
You wouldn't remember that, but on Crossfire,
Crossfire.
very
Man,
beginning
that's
of
a
Wings of
throwback
Liberty,
now.
you would do that until people realized expanding it actually is a thing.
Yeah, back in the early days of Wings of Liberty.
There's someone brought up, I think it was maybe like Tasteless, but he brought up a good point. It's to like, you know, people, the Brood War people always making fun of StarCraft 2, and it's like, now, whatever about it, but 2010 StarCraft actually made no sense. StarCraft 2 made no sense. You go to from Brood War that had been perfected over 15 years at that point to like one base bio Marine Marauder all in. You can't really blame them for being like, this game's kind of stupid.
Do you remember the player Bit by Bit? He'd just pull his
I
every
do.
single game. He'd just pull all of his SCVs and be like, okay, cool. I have around 10 Marines. I'm ready to go all in.
I would say most people don't know him for his time in the scene. They know him by people referencing him when Heart of the Swarm, all he ever did was SCV pull.
Yeah, that
against
was a great
Protoss.
time. That was a great, great time.
Was it though? There's also the Mass Thors that was used in the very first GSL. They're like huge. Have you gotten the Thor bug? Well, you don't play Terran, I guess. Have you seen Thor?
Yeah, the
And they're the
massive
huge ones?
Thors.
Yeah.
That was a
really
great
confused.
bug. I was actually a little bit afraid. Like, there were some other matches for another tournament that I was watching. And I was a little afraid, like, were these played during the time where you could make Hellbats without an armory?
Yeah, we had to put on a tournament when the Hellbat thing was still bugged. It was fixed like within 4 hours, I want to say, of the tweet that was made, but that wasn't fast enough.
Well, unfortunately, it seems like Scarlett won't be able to make use of that kind of bug, but
No, she just waited for Hellbats like the normal person and still won.
still could work
Good
out pretty
deal,
effectively.
Good deal. It's still like she did bring out, when I want to say, there's like a really old build that only existed in the beginning of Legacy of the Void. Back when everyone was still experimenting.
Okay, well,
But,
I
wanna do
think
it
we
again.
might be hopping into the game pretty soon, and I guess we'll all find out together as a nice little family on whether or not Scarlett and Neeb are forced to continue playing those races, and I guess what map we're going to be going to.
I don't remember the second one, so
Neither do I.
Ascension, I think, because they had read the thing reversed wrong, and I'm pretty sure I said
I'll trust
Ascension.
you on that. Hey, nice memory, and wow, we are going back to the
Oh, okay.
original races, ladies and gentlemen. So think of this like a best of 5, as we start down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. The pink Zerg player, put your hands together for...
Team expert Scarlett.
And up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Protoss player. He is...
Team Neeb.
This really is like a best of 5 though, because like game 1, there's no mind games or information to glean from that.
This is the only time you can say that without the people on like Team Liquid being like, oh, there's actually a human people say that, because literally one game was given and another game was a different race matchup.
Yeah.
This is another best of 5 PvZ between them. Scarlett got the first one, I guess, in the last series they played, right? Super long on Ascension to Ire.
Oh god.
This is actually just a repeat of the best of 5.
I'm just ready for Neeb to go hyper macro once again, and then it just goes straight into like most of the map getting mined out once again.
Apparently he says he wants to play macro games. Like he's not going to be
He just has to be more patient. Actually, I think he could have taken that first game on Ascension Ire.
Yeah, I wonder if his thought process though is not like I should have been more patient at the minute 35 and rather
be more aggressive earlier.
Yeah, like exactly. Well, not even just aggressive, but like fixing things earlier on. Like, well, clearly I shouldn't have gone triple row, but it didn't help me. I should have just gone right into the Stargates, and then I would have had a better position. Like, yeah, there's certainly something to be said about finding the first mistake and fixing that, and not even worrying about the rest of the game.
Yeah,
it's a little, severe, but you could.
Well, for now, we do have a pretty normal looking opening. Neither player really getting too cheeky or cheesy for now. And normally, Neeb's really like to try and deny that hatchery and try and be annoying with that probe, build a pylon to even delay it a little bit longer. But seems like this game not really opting to do anything of the sort. Or I guess maybe not even getting the opportunity to, as the hatchery went down pretty quick.
Yeah, it's a long map. He didn't get there in time. And he might not really ever want to. He does it occasionally, the pylon block. But I think more often he just really is scouting for the presence of a hatchery and the pull timing.
Well, first Adept going to be making its way out, and this is also another thing that you've been talking about a lot, which is how he uses his Adepts, how much he commits, those small little mind games. As I guess things calm down, this gets become a more serious series where you have that kind of small little mind game that they play with each other and how they use their units and how effective they're going to be in the early stage of the game.
His first Adepts, I mean, they actually are used, I think, like his later ones, whether when it comes to 7 or 8, like he will not mind just pulling them back. Get the Scout as much as you can with a limited vision on the Adept Shade, but then if there's really not an opportunity, just go back home. Because losing the Adepts, this is a big learning process of Protoss in every matchup a year and a half ago, where like they were like just throwing Adepts in, losing them and not able to go into a macro game. I think Neeb's really taken that one to heart, and is I think one of the more defensive guys with his Adepts that I can note.
Yeah, just realizing that if he keeps them alive, you can always utilize them later. Not only for the defensive, making sure you can establish that third base, but even just continuing to put on the pressure later on when he comes in with a big Adept attack for 3-gate Adepts or 4-gate Adept with DTs or what have you.
I mean, obviously he can throw in the Adepts if he sees an opportunity, and he clearly can go for all-ins, Resident Glaive pushes, but
we haven't really seen any so far.
Yeah, no, we really haven't. But he does err on the side of like protecting his expansion and expanding in general, going for the macro game.
All right, well, first Oracle going to make its way across the map and see what damage it can get done. Workgate Technology finishing up behind this, and we'll also see what the kind of follow-up is going to be from Neeb. He already threw down that third base, so seems like likely he's just going to continue to macro and play that good old game, especially since the Oracle not really able to do a whole lot so far.
Yeah, it's really a question of what other tech structures he builds. His Overlord does see the Warpment of Adepts and the Shade out, so she has to be a little wary of letting even like a handful of Lings to potentially help out against a push. But I don't believe she's seen a second Oracle, and that was like only 5 Adepts she saw go out. So this is like, it wouldn't be that big of a push. And Queens might even take care of it. But no, there's second Oracle.
Yeah, second Oracle's there. Normally he likes to go for the Void Ray behind this as well, but not really opting to so far. Big swell of Lings coming out from Scarlett's, but it's mostly just to try and deal with the Adepts, make sure that she's in position to try and make sure she doesn't take too much drone damage. Adepts are going to finish that Shade, sweeping straight over to the, it looks like back over there to play defensively.
Yep, very, very safe with this. Again, if there's an opportunity, if there's only Queens, for instance, like they were really just being greedy with their drones, and the Oracles can swoop in, kill the Queens, and grab some drones, not all with the Spore Crawler there.
Okay, Ling's actually getting a pretty good surround on these Adepts, and the Shades come out pretty
Oh,
late.
no.
And with one of the Oracles falling, this is going to be a huge win right now for Scarlett, picking up almost everything.
That's really unfortunate he lost that second Oracle. The Adepts, I guess they're going to be taken out anyways with all that many Lings getting a surround on them, but that was a loss. And there might be an attempt to check the third base with Lings, but I think it's more likely that she thinks there's already a pylon ready to be photon overcharged.
Even if there's just one pylon ready
Yeah.
there to be photon overcharged, there aren't actually too many defenses back there at home for Neeb right now. Oracle does move into the main base, maybe throw down like a Revelation or something inside there just to keep an eye on things. Yep, then sees the layer timing as well, but Scarlett is going to go relatively uncontested in terms of that early game. She didn't really take a whole lot of drone damage. She made some Lings to try and deal with Neeb's aggression, but she got up to a pretty healthy worker count. She cleaned up the Adepts very quickly. She dealt with one of the Oracles. I feel like this game has gone in her favor so far.
She made drones very shortly after a burst of Lings, and then drones and Lings towards the end of preparing for that push. So really just taking it as seriously as she needs to, with only so many Adepts and enough Queens to take care of the Oracles. She definitely should have been droning. That's what she did. So she's in a very comfortable position. She's starting to build a really big bank. It is going to be a Spire for her, triple Stargate for Neeb.
This looks very weird because most people will look at this and say, Spire, well, Mutas, wait a second, they have triple Stargate. But, sometimes you can go into Corruptors and you can make other weird things happen, but this gets really, really dicey quickly.
Yeah, I would say what really might trigger what she builds from that, whether it's Corruptors or Mutas, or maybe she won't even build anything. Maybe she just had on a Hydralisk Den and then decide to go into that one, or an Infestation Pit, I guess. Does this get scouted? Because if you do build them, if you can actually build like 20 Mutas right off the bat, the Phoenixes will attempt to be made, but they might get on top of the pylon in the production fast enough. And that can start a snowball effect, but it is obviously the riskier way to play.
There's a lot of gas banked up right now for Scarlett. She could potentially make around 15 Mutas as soon as that Spire finishes up. And the Oracles are making their way into the main base. The Spire, I believe, is over at the natural. So as long as the Oracles are busy over here trying to do damage, then they won't quite be scouted. The Mutas are going to be popping out pretty shortly, but man, they are already starting to do some pretty good damage.
The fact that they have to take care of the Oracles first, though, means that I don't believe they're going to be a problem. She's actually making a lot of them. She went up to 16, but they're not going to be able to stop the lair from dying.
Oh, God, this is going to be a huge blow right now to Scarlett's economy, and also just her tech. Losing that lair makes it so much harder. Revelation even thrown down on top of these Mutas, of course, since they're going to be losing their lives. Might as well use that energy, but it makes it even easier to deal with the Mutas.
Well, the Oracles aren't splitting away. They're actually just trying to run back home all in a clump, which is reducing the amount of time Neeb has to build Phoenixes. And you can't really, she's going to have, I think she went up to 20-something Mutas with 6 more on the way. She won't have enough, he would not have enough Phoenixes to take on that many Mutas, and he doesn't have any Stalkers to help out either, and only a couple Photon Overcharges.
Oh, but Scarlett actually trying to go over to the 3rd and to the 4th right now, so this does buy Neeb even more time, because if he's able to clean up all these Mutas, this is a massive investment, and he just killed off a base for Scarlett. So if Scarlett just kills off one base of Neeb, I don't really think it's going to be considered even. I think Neeb will be pretty happy with that exchange.
Yeah, a canceled base, that's really not that bad. For the initial panic that sets in when you see the Mutas and you only have one pylon charging up your Stargates, like that's a little scary, but she did go to something that was a little less important and unfortunately just loses her lair and doesn't get too much in return. She did kill the Oracle, so she doesn't have to worry about being Oracle attacked again, but the Mutas might not find the use that she was hoping for.
Yeah, all right, gets another Oracle over there before the Revelation is thrown down once again. Neeb's still looking for it right now. He sees the Mutas with the Revelation, continues to tag them, and now has those Phoenix out in fairly high numbers. Zealot's also moving out for the charge, and this could get really dangerous. What is Scarlett's ground army?
This is actually terrible. She went into more Corruptors as opposed to anything else. I mean, I guess if the Mutas are on top of the Zealots and the Phoenixes aren't here to help, then obviously that's a win for the Mutas. But the Phoenixes should be around trying to stop the Mutas from just taking out the charge lots. And the charge lots should be like actually running around, getting into all the bases. This is actually going to be a potentially decent amount of drone kills.
Yeah, even the Phoenixes just making their way over to the main base to try and pick off Overlords, pick off a couple of these drones as well, while the Zealots also go ham. The Corruptors trying to chase after those Phoenix, and they do manage to land some good hits on the Oracles, but that's really not the damage they need to get done.
But the charge lots were cleaned up about as effectively as possible. Even though they eventually split into 3 different bases, there's only a couple of them, and the Mutas were able to take them out fast enough. So only 8 drones is not that bad. And in fact, Neeb just gave away a lot of the his ground army, I suppose, the 10 zealots or so that he had built up.
That is true. This is turning into a really weird game. Scarlett also up to 95 drones, so kind of exceeding expectations from one of the previous series where she just continued to drone up like an absolute madwoman. But now we got some banelings being made, going to be much more effective against the Zealots. But oh wait, we got mostly Stalker Warpins now.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see him. I wondered if he would cancel charge and go into Blink, but he just, obviously added Blink after, because it is going to be helpful against the Corruptors and the Mutas.
A lot of these Phoenix have gone down now due to the Corruptors chasing after them, the Mutas, and Blink Stalkers are going to be effective to try and push back most of these units. The Corruptors absolutely useless against them, and the Mutas really no longer in high enough numbers to take on direct fight versus the Stalkers.
Yeah, Scarlett definitely winning in that army lead, up 30. The Corruptors may or may not be useful, so maybe that's something away from her army supply, but they are keeping the threat of Phoenixes very low, even with Graviton Catapult. Like, it's still difficult to take on Corruptors who need a lot of Phoenixes. And she's also, I would say, like, this game is effectively, well, I don't want to say too soon, but it's going to take a long time before we get into mass air versus mass air. If this is how the game has gone like this, Neeb has had to have so many plans rearranged. He's had to respond to Mutas, then he had to respond to the fact that there's Muta Corruptor, which is a very old school style of playing. He's still kind of reeling, I think, from the tech change.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely put him in a very awkward position, but I feel like he still does have his economy. He still is getting up some degree of tech with the Templar Archives coming up. And if these Blink Stalkers continue to defend well, which I'm actually really impressed with how well he's defending with Blink Stalkers, generally considered very much a temporary measure to deal with Mutas, but with how well he's doing it and how little of an investment Scarlett really has in anything else, I actually think this could still go okay for him.
Yeah, there were certainly a couple points where, the Phoenixes were dying, there weren't a lot of Stalkers, Blink wasn't done, where Muta Corruptor could have done a lot of damage, but as you said, he had his economy, and he's been slowly building up a great army.
But that economy may not be long for this world as all these Lings and all of these Banelings flooding on into the fourth right now. Neeb is so busy dealing with the Mutas in the main.
The High Templars are what I was worried about, but he does see them and morph them into Archons before they're taken out. In fact, they're taking a lot of the damage away from the Lings. She is allowed into the natural and into the main as well and starting to rack up the probe kills. Yeah,
down to just 54 and still going to be losing a few more workers here and there. Stalkers blinking from the main base over to the natural, but that allows these Mutas to now move over to those transferring probes. Photon Cannon getting taken out. There's just no response from Neeb right now.
Yeah, he had to clean up the natural. He's still paying attention to his fourth base as well, and 22 probes go down. I believe she was able to get the Forge as well. No, actually it doesn't look. The other Forge.
The weird thing behind all this is that Neeb just continues losing more and more of these workers, but at the end of the day, he's actually sitting even closer in supply than he was at the beginning of that attack. Scarlett's going to continue to move in and try and harass, but Neeb is actually moving across the map, trying to go for a kill move, and this is where it gets very, very weird.
This is like a Heart of the Swarm deja vu. If you get stuck in Blink Stalkers, generally it just ends in a base trade.
Pickoffs.
The fact, losing that many Mutas, finding Blink Stalkers like that was not what she intended. And Neeb might be pretty on point about finding a Spire, considering that this is looking more and more like a real good old-fashioned Muta versus Blink Stalker base trade.
Okay, well, it seems like Neeb is going to try and split up his units best as possible. The Archons are actually going to be very, very helpful, but he doesn't want to end up losing those. He's trying to take out some of the Overlord Stalkers over at the natural, trying to blink back, deal with those Lings while he kills off the economy of Scarlett. Scarlett does have more than enough money to build extra hatcheries if she needs to, but she needs to make sure she runs some of those drones away.
She's actually coming home. I don't think she depowered the Stargates, much less killed them, so that could be a problem in the future. No, she didn't. She just got the Nexus. That really wasn't that much damage for the amount that Neeb was able to deal to her.
Neeb still has mining bases right now, so he could start making some Phoenix potentially later on, especially since he already researched the Phoenix range. But here we go. Guardian Shield, incredibly helpful with that splash damage from the Mutalisk, and it seems like he's going to be able to push back Scarlett without too many problems. More Stalkers coming in from behind, and it seems like Neeb is taking a massive lead in these trades.
I think that was already kind of predetermined. When she came back to deal with that, GG. 2-1 lead for Neeb. When she pulled back from the base trade, that was already, I feel, the nail in the coffin. When you see them move around like that, you have to either have like a lot of this is like Heart of the Swarm knowledge, right? You gotta have a lot of Spine Callers prepared to pick away the Blink Stalker count if you do plan on coming home. Otherwise, you go for the literal base race. Like, I'm gonna kill everything. But she didn't have a lot of Lings to help her with that. It really was just the Mutas and the Corruptors in the main base, and the 4th and 3rds were probably being cannoned up. You didn't get a look at them, but they probably weren't. She probably thought that too. So she had to come home, but it was not going to work out for her.
Yeah, and when you have a big swell of Mutas or you have Corruptors and everything, they will do well as a big clump together. They don't do well when you have to spread them out, where Neeb's army has a decent chunk of Stalkers. You can split them up between each one of the bases and attach an Archon with each one of them and say, cool, I can deal with the reinforcements that pop out and handle things.
Especially because I've noted that Forge dying, and I was like, oh wait, the other one was researching. The other one was researching the most important upgrade as well, which is +3 attack. So he had that at the end for it. So that's like the real difference too. If you're in an emergency situation, you have Stalkers and they have absolutely no upgrades, they're pretty garbage against Mutas. But he had actually played a really great, solid defensive game against Mutas, which haven't made their way in this matchup too often. The thing, like her playing into Mutas against that Oracle opener, it happens occasionally, but I want to say like one every like 50 games or something. Yeah,
that was a pretty unorthodox game that I really would be very surprised if we end up seeing anything even close to it for the rest of the series. But seems like game number 3 will likely end up being Abyssal Reef.
Yeah,
which,
so I guess we're not going to see Interloper at all.
Yeah.
Which means we're going to see Catalina? What the heck?
Oh,
It's the first time this week?
We'll wait and see.
Oh, stop it for a second. Why do you do this?
But Abyssal Reef, definitely a map that I think a lot of pros players feel a little bit more comfortable on just because it's really nice for that War Prism harassment. There are a lot of nice choke points where you can really take advantage of, force fields and trying to do some nice harassment, especially shading around with the depths can be very annoying.
I'm just looking at the map list, and I'm like, they've been spelling it like the dressing this entire time. Instead of like Catalina. It's basically the song.
Catalina?
It's Catellana or something like that.
Yeah.
You know that? And there's the Catalina dressing that's different.
I'm allergic to milk, so I don't know about dressing.
Is that milk in it? I don't know. There's dressing without milk, but the point is, okay, I'm disappointed in your lack of knowledge.
You know what else doesn't
Catalina.
have milk this series as we hop into game number 4. And we're going to be starting up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, atop of the pink Zerg player. Put your hands together for...
Team Expert Scarlett.
And her opponent spawning down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, the blue Protoss player. Put your hands together for...
Team Neeb.
I really hope we get to see Catalina.
Yeah, that'd be fun. You don't get to see it very often. 3-player map.
You don't? Well, I think she, in particular, Scarlett's been vetoing it every single time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but no vetoes here.
Okie dokie. Well, we do have a pretty quick spawning pool, and gas guys are coming down over here for Scarlett. Not quick in the sense that it's like she's going to rush out a bunch of lings and put the pressure on. She may make a handful of lings and try and annoy Neeb just because of Abyssal Reef. You have 2 different openings to your natural. You can be very annoying in that regard, but it's definitely going to be just a little light pressure.
Yeah, I think it's so tricky with Abyssal Reef because there are 2 openings that always look so tempting. Like, they're never going to be able to afford the entire wall. I remember thinking that as well when we first saw this map, when we first saw Ling rushes against it. And it would be kind of tricky for Protoss to take care of, but...
There's a little bit of a 50-50 mind game on this map where some Protoss players will try and wall off the front side where the destructible rocks are, and some Protoss players will try and wall off the other side first and say, I can wall off the destructible rock side whenever I want. It's a little bit easier to wall off, but you always try and guess when you see this kind of spawning pool opening first, which side are they going to send the lings on? Because sometimes they try and predict you, they try and get sneaky. Sometimes they just go straight forward and you're like, okay, I mind game myself.
But of course, if you see with the probe,
Yeah.
maybe he ducks back and tries to get a second scout, that there just aren't that many lings. Even if the lings enter your base, it's not that big of a deal.
It's
like,
annoying, but it's not the end of the world.
It's always so hype when you see the lings enter, but you realize they're speedless. There's nothing following them. Like, okay, probes will take care of this.
Yeah, eventually you always do get that cleanup, and at most they maybe get a worker kill or 2, but that probe is going to dip back in and try and get another scout out. That's going to mean no real aggression coming out from Scarlett. The probe scout, honestly, just really helping Neeb out quite a bit in this.
We're going to be waiting to see what Neeb plans for this game. Last game, triple Stargate, and he had to respond to what Scarlett was doing. He didn't actually scout the Spire. It was this, the Mutas managed to surprise him, but his oracles were so deep in enemy territory, it didn't matter.
That was an interesting maneuver. I think he's trying to block out the lings and create some distance for himself with that probe, but didn't quite work out.
Or get an auto attack on it. I don't know. Does
You accidentally hit B and E to auto attack, and then click.
If she had just never A clicked on the probe, then does it target the pylon?
If she
Or maybe he just super embarrassed by it.
I think if you create the distance, it would attack the pylon. But if the probe is still the closest thing, it may just attack the probe.
I mean, I would usually say a structure doesn't have that much threat, but the pylon is truly
Pylons are truly scary
in the game. So
One of the most threatening units in the game, I would say. But, well, Oracle's going to be coming out. No surprises here from Neeb. It's still a bit of a question if he's going to throw down additional Stargates and continue with this kind of really air-focused army like he has been doing versus Scarlett traditionally.
Stargate it is, which he just barely saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a question of something a little bit more. We do have an Evolution Chamber on the way for Scarlett's first single upgrade. Ling Hydra usually was the jam, but trying to fit in that Spire to mix things up.
Okay, well, with second Stargate coming out, we do know that Neeb is going to commit at least a little bit more to making additional Oracles. He can transition out at some point. I mean, some Protoss players do like to transition out really early on. They make like 5 to 6 Oracles, even off of those 2 Stargates, and then they just stop, and they're okay with it. But we'll see where he decides to stop and transition out. The Adepts, finding 2 worker kills, might find a 3rd. Ooh, that's pretty nice, but do eventually get picked off.
That Oracle just like literally swooped in and out to get that 1 drone kill.
Ooh, trying to find a little bit more drone damage. Does get most of the drones mining gas, which is very annoying. Takes a little extra APM to try and put them back on.
Gliding Oracles is something that I still can't do.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Watching like Classic do it, it's actually kind of masterful.
Yeah, gliding Oracles and also just Oracles picking off Widow Mines. I think those are the 2 things that are still just really impressive to me when I see it.
I can imagine you trying to pick off Widow Mines with Oracle.
It doesn't go well.
I would never try. I just feel like this isn't going to work.
Well, 3rd base is going to be going up for Neeb, so he will be looking to just go into a pretty standard kind of macro game, getting out some of those Oracles. Additionally, gets out the safety Void Ray, which has actually been really nice because it allows him to pick off those creep tumors as well, so he doesn't have to use energy to pick them off after he throws down the Revelation.
I really like the Void Ray utility tool, I guess we'll call it. They can clear up creep, they can kill a queen with the help of the Oracles, they can kill Overlords just like a Phoenix, so deny scouting. And can actually help take down Spore Crawlers as well, if that's your plan.
Okay. Voider coming on in, actually going after Overlords. This is fascinating. This is actually going to be able to get some okay damage done. 1 free Overlord, hey, not too shabby.
Yeah. And just patrolling for any more that are accidentally rallied, I suppose.
Yeah.
The Oracle count is really starting to grow, but we do have that transition into Double Forge, which is what he did on last series. They played together, Ascension to Ire.
Yep.
It's something that didn't really end up helping him, as that was the super long game, late game.
This is looking kind of dangerous right now. There are a handful of queens trying to target fire down some of these Oracles, but now the drones are just starting to die. The Oracles on hold position just going to target fire down those instead of the queens, but now the queens are under attack. There just aren't enough of them. The Void Ray may end up falling. No, the Void are still finally surviving until the last couple hits, but there is just not enough firepower over here from Scarlett.
That was a super good trade. The fact that so many queens weren't involved in the initial fight, that Void Ray wasn't targeted down, was brutal. And I guess she's not GGing, but...
She's laughing it off right now, saying, well, maybe if I just continue to laugh, my drones will come back to life.
That's way too small for me to tell if that's a smiley or a sad face.
Tries to go for a bit of a Ling run by and maybe even throwing out the smiley face, hoping that Neeb would type up some long response about, no, please, Oracles are fine. But the Warpman is going to be able to save these Lings from being able to make their way into the natural, into the main.
The Oracles did not stop to try and take care of the Lings, and in fact, the Sentry was late to the force field. I think the pylon was meant to be put down, but it was messed up. So she's going to get some revenge, but not 26 kills, I don't think.
Yeah, well, these Lings aren't just fighting head-on versus these probes. So 9 workers killed, not a bad start, but she would need some sort of additional follow-up. And unfortunately, she just doesn't have an army left over after all of that. Whereas Neeb has just been building up that energy back on some of these Oracles and can continue to not only defend, but also just continue to be aggressive.
Yeah, she's only up to 57 drones. It's definitely something that has interrupted the tempo of PvZ, losing that many drones, losing that many queens as well, which is further defense against the Oracles. And now that she sees there's, again, like 7 or 8 of them, she's got to be scared of them just targeting down a Spore Crawler, even 2 Spore Crawlers.
I think the only saving grace right now is that those Oracles are still regenerating some of their energy, and in a moment, I feel like they are going to be able to pounce on one of these bases because there aren't that many queens left over, or Scarlett is still trying to remake them, and oh god, the Hydra Den is going to actually get picked off over here. A handful of them are on the way already, but this is going to cut down on her ability to defend against this.
There's only 1 Spore Crawler. Oh, no, there's 2, sorry. The 3rd one was building, which is what I was worried about. Looking to go after the queens. The Hydras do pop out, but they realize they can't help, so they might as well just go back and try and live themselves.
Oh man, this has got to be a frustrating situation right now for Scarlett. I can just imagine she's feeling around her chair right now for that buff Oracle signs, because clearly, you know, they're not good enough right now.
We need to be a little bit stronger. If only there's player cams, I can almost guarantee you should try and put that on.
Oh, man. Well, either way, Scarlett does manage to establish a new base, even if she hasn't been able to saturate it. But now here comes round number 2. We got the ground force coming in, and so many of these lings have been picked off, and there are a handful of these Hydras out, but they're going to have their hands busy with the Oracles.
Yeah, the Infestors are what's going to make it feel a little bit safe, but until then, you don't know what they've been doing behind this. She had that one ling run by as he was transitioning. He was getting that ground army ready to go, but I don't think she really saw very much of it. So now seeing just like a lot of Stalkers with actually upgrades 1-1, but still not blink. There we go. Yeah. Now they got blink. That's, I don't know if she can deal with that.
Yeah, an ode to Hitman as he moves on in with +2 Blink Stalkers, and Scarlett doing her best with these Hydras, trying to morph in some Banelings that could potentially get some okay hits off, and a handful of Force Fields just prevent most of these Hydras from really getting too involved. Even the Hatchery, the Oracle getting involved, and everything is just starting to fall for Scarlett.
I really like that Neeb
aggressively forward into Hydras. Nah, it's not going to be enough, right? Maybe?
The Guardian Shield wasn't used. He thought he was going to win, I suppose, just with that one. But he still has that warpism warping in, so GG.
Neeb takes a 3-1 lead, is one game away from finally becoming the King of the North, and Scarlett is up against the ropes.
Yeah, she's about to lose her title.
Yeah.
Lose a crown.
She had it for a whole year.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, it's like a whole year. But this is, as we were talking about Neeb's, you know, this is the tournament that he's got to get back on. He already got his revenge for the WCSs that he lost, so now he has to get revenge for the Kings of the North that he has lost. I said it was number 2, right? Yeah, exactly. And he's about to do it. He's up 3-1 and looking quite strong. I was mentioning how much I liked that follow-up by him. It was any ground follow-up after those Oracles, especially if they do damage, I think it's just always going to be like, Zerg just like, oh, I guess I'm dead, like grown, right? But the Blink Stalkers especially, that's a unique twist.
I think that's one of the scariest things about the Oracles, because they are so capable. If you have that experience with the Oracles, you know and you can identify these kill moves where you say, actually, no, you don't have enough over here. I'm just going to go in on this. I'm just going to go in with all my Oracles, kill off the Spore, kill off the Queens, and you just won't be able to handle it. The Oracles deal damage so quickly. Even if you have Queens with energy, it's so difficult to transfuse target-firing Oracles on Queens.
Yeah, it's really too bad. That was a big momentum breaker for her game. Like, the series, obviously, is not looking so great, but for the game, she was, you know, just getting into her rhythm. She had the 4th base. She had the decent number of drones. She maybe was even looking to get a few more. And their Queens were out of position just slightly, so that it became 1, 2, 3 Spore Crawlers, then 5, 6, like so many Queens went down one for another. And Neeb, well, I don't think many other people would have actually looked at that scenario and said I could take that on. Because there were Spore Crawlers, there were Queens, just he said there weren't enough.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know, what is Scarlett to do at this point? Maybe try and talk Neeb into going into off-race show matches once again?
Yeah, clearly her Terran is great. Just held that all in with Liberators.
Neeb is the kind of person who is like, no, not after that one loss.
No way. But it's going to be difficult, I think, for Scarlett. As much as she likes to feel confident against this guy, the actual data has reflected that most, you know, in the most recent games they've played, he's just looked dominant, and everyone's expecting him to look dominant, being one of the best foreigners going into BlizzCon this year. Yeah,
it's so funny. When I talked to Neeb beforehand in one of the interviews earlier yesterday, he was saying he had predicted a Scarlett versus him was just going to go 3-1 in his favor or 3-1 in her favor, and it was a 3-1 in his favor, and now we may very well just be seeing a 4-1 if this player up here in the top left-hand corner of the map cannot turn this around. She is spawning as the pink Zerg player. She's up against the ropes. Put your hands together for
Team Expert Scarlett.
And down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, this guy is just unstoppable right now. The blue Protoss player, he needs your energy. Give it up for
Team Neeb.
You know how, like, people say you need your energy, and they're talking to, like, you know, Goku's Spirit Bomb?
That's, of course, what everyone is referring to.
Definitely. Well, Goku is, like, really trying hard to save his friends and, you know, the world, and he just looks really passionate. I imagine Neeb would never look like that. you'd give his energy. You'd give your energy to Neeb, and he'd just be like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, all right, here.
Thanks for that.
Wait a second, that's a massive energy boost.
I don't know if he's the one that needs the support here. Of course, Scarlett being the hometown hero from actual Canada. This is Canada, America once again. But a lot of people love Neeb.
Yeah.
So I'm getting around it.
He has definitely become the literal god of the United States of America. One of the few players ever since, I would almost dare say, Idra from the U.S. that has actually really found a lot of success on the international scene.
Well, he's certainly the most successful.
Yeah.
American
Actually,
player
yeah, arguably
past
more
Idra.
successful than Idra as well.
Yeah, I guess people will really argue like GSL or Kespa Cup, like which one is actually.
Technically, Neeb has never made it to the GSL like GSL Codas participant, no regret.
The harshest conversations we had this weekend is when like no regrets, like 2 Codas players and
Two
Neeb's
Codas
there
players.
and like, not counted.
Scarlett and no regret. Neeb has not quite made it to my level, no regret.
That's sad. I just feel especially bad because everyone was like, well, he clearly is like not playing, bro. And I'm like, guys, Hurricane's like not that bad at PvP, right?
No.
Like, come on, give him a break.
Man, that's always a rough when you have those situations. But hey, Neeb's still spending a lot of time in Korea. Might have another opportunity to do so and finally shush no regret on those comments. But
Yeah, I think he'd have to get to the round of 4 because General got to the round of 4.
watch no regret make it out of the group stages before Neeb.
One
It never ends.
One day. Oh, God. All right, so Neeb going for the Stargate opener again. Nothing too weird from either player. Scarlett did not go for an early pull or whatnot. The fact is Neeb always seems to always scout with a probe. Yeah, I think every game he's scouted with a probe. So, well, what's the reason for really going for an early pull?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he hasn't an early pull, maybe not, but I still feel as though Neeb is that player that he really does like delaying his Mothership Core. And yes, it is because he has been so successful at defending against early aggression, but I do feel like, you know, a player like Scarlett may be able to find an opportunity there where if you just get around your opponent's adepts, you prevent them from really scouting out the big attack, then maybe you can make some magic happen. But
Well, she was really the first one to start pushing that problem. Like, hey, look at his weakness. Hey, look at his weakness. So if she doesn't think that it's going to work, it's probably because it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And they have played it quite a few number of times in the past month or two. So.
Deps are going to probably shade in and get a couple of drones. I think he's like shaded in once or twice, I think, and got a few drones, and he's just evacuated completely at least once, deciding not to even try for it. But he doesn't see any lings. He saw only the queens, but the lings are actually in the middle of the mineral line, which I'm not sure he even saw. But
already
still getting 5 drones.
This is already more than I think he's gotten in almost any of this series with those initial 2 adepts. So this has absolutely been a pretty nice little win for him. Not a massive win or anything, but it definitely is a bit of a blow to Scarlett, who has already not been doing the greatest in this series.
Yeah. Their Nexus on the way, seen by the Overlord, expected from the opener of the Stargate. And you can definitely like just try and power up your macro, but a couple of lings here are not going to be able to stop this Nexus from coming up. Even if the Oracle wasn't there, like that's not enough lings, right? But he even bothered to keep the Oracle at home to make sure that couldn't stall at his Nexus.
Yeah, one additional gateway being thrown down could just be to complete the wall in and prevent run-bys, of course, but we'll see if Neeb just decides to go into a bit more of a ground-focused composition right off of that one Stargate. He does have another pylon going up. Could be planting down those Stargates sometime soon if he's looking to do so, or just going into, again, like a bit of a different opening than he has been for most of these games.
I know Ascension to Ire didn't really, the first series they played, Ascension to Ire, didn't really work out that well for him when he transitioned really quickly into double forge and triple robo. But that game on Abyssal Reef just now, I thought was really a cool maneuver, and like I would like to see that follow up again to see if she would be, she would adapt to it basically. And it is 2 extra Stargates.
Yeah, 2 extra Stargates. He's gonna stick with the tried and true, but very quick Hydras coming out over here for Scarlett. Sitting on just 48 workers, she may actually be able to hit that kind of old school, I don't even know if I should call it old school, but just that Hydra Ling attack timing. You might even be able to skip Banelings and just really hit it quite early on.
There are some Hydra buffs against Oracle builds, especially like you literally just make Hydras. And as much as possible, get close to maxed out and hope to catch them. Because even if they do go to charge lots, even if they try, especially if they try and transition into Tempest or Carriers, you can try and just overwhelm them. But I don't know. I've seen that from like the NA players, to be honest, and it hasn't worked out too well.
Wow, we're at an NA tournament, Zombie Grub. Open your eyes.
No, but I know what you mean. Koreans, and that's what matters.
Well, here come the Hydras, and even some of the Queens joining the fray, kind of taking a book or a page from the book where she was using versus Masa. Oracle's going to scout all of this out. Oh, actually might be caught a little bit off guard. Oh my god, an uncharacteristic mistake from Neeb. Gives up 3 Oracles. This is a huge deal. He suddenly has substantially far fewer defenses available.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting those Hydras to be so aggressive. He does have pylons put at the front of the base, though, so Photon Overcharge is available, but not too many. Militia Core is still pretty fresh, so I think she has, yeah, almost one more. Very close to it. It's just Hydras, though, so as much as the count of Hydras is scary, they'll go down fast to most things.
Well, the Queens are going to join the fray eventually, and they have that nice little range advantage on a lot of these units, but the Adepts looking to shade forward. They're mostly just trying to get some information, trying to see exactly how many Hydras there are, but it is going to be about where the defense also needs to happen, because Neeb can't really defend 2 locations at once all that well, and now he might even get caught trying to move down the ramp with some of these units.
I'm almost feeling like that Interloper game in their last series, except that was with Roaches and then Roach Hydra, but it's at the 47 worker count. It's earlier than he would expect, but he might be able to get the units if he buys time to defend against this.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a much better economy than Scarlett right now, and Photon Overcharge was already used, and all the Adepts actually made their way straight up, back up the ramp, and now the pylon's getting taken out. Scarlett finally breaking through, and Neeb's going to have to sacrifice his 3rd.
All right, he just abandons the 3rd, and that's probably the wisest thing he could do. Until that Oracle count was a lot higher, there's more Adepts. That was going to be too many Hydras, even with a couple of Transfuses. But with the evacuation, there might still be a decent macro game for him.
Oh, catching the Queens is really nice. Oh, nice Transfuse. Does keep them alive for a moment longer, but here we go. The Adept shade on in. The Hydra's trying to deal out the DPS. More reinforcements coming in from the backside. The Oracle's now finally coming under attack, and is it going to be enough over here for Scarlett? It looks like she's able to push back Neeb.
Oh, just barely, but not enough Oracles for the reinforcements, and now Lings are coming in as well. He desperately needs more Oracles and more Adepts. Militia Core was remade, or survived, has 1 more Swift and Overcharge. This is actually still so close that some of those Hydras survive are going to be able to take out that Mothership Core.
A couple of Banelings also added in over here, but the Photon Overcharge has also been taken out, and now suddenly the probes are going to be on the retreat. There are so many of them for Neeb, so he can afford to lose a few, but he has to defend here. He's still up 10 workers, and Scarlett does not have a transition.
And he did start his 3rd as soon as he evacuated that 4th base. That's really important as well. I don't even know if she knows about that, how she did scout it, but she's going to try and actually end the game, go for the throat, go for the natural base. But there's something really cool. The pros managed to surround 2 of the Banelings that almost crashed into his other probes. So losing 8 when he could have lost 20 is much better.
The Cybernetics Core getting hit by those Hydras is going to prevent additional Adept Warpins, as well as any Sentry Stalkers and almost anything. It'll even prevent a Mothership Core from being remade if he ends up losing this. This is going to be a huge problem. His gateway count is also fairly low right now, so this is becoming worse and worse for Neeb.
I know he's been building Oracles, but I guess he's just trying to keep them as far away as possible.
Oh, going after the probes. And, oh no, now redeciding and going after some of those Zealots. GG! Scarlett puts another one on the board.
All right. 3-2, but something that Neeb certainly wasn't expecting. Imagine what would happen had he had those extra 3 Oracles that he lost in the middle of the map. He was so close to actually reversing the momentum with that one desperate attempt to get rid of that army. And the Oracles just were barely not enough.
Yeah, it's really hard to go into a game and say, cool, let me go into game number 5 and just make sure that he loses 3 Oracles because he wasn't watching them again. Like, that's not a good game plan. It felt a lot like, yeah, those 3 Oracles could have made or broke the difference. So where does Scarlett go from here? She is at least halting some of the momentum for Neeb, but it still feels as though there's this kind of nice advantage going in his favor.
Yeah. I mean, when you consider, I guess, that we said this is kind of like the best of 5 first game, right? That she's taken, aside from being Terran, I suppose.
Aside from being Terran.
Yeah. So he's willing to maybe give up a map.
Yeah.
Then he'll just, demolish next time. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, Scarlett may be able to come up with some sort of other answers. I think we're going to be finding out very soon if we're hopping onto Catalina, which, oh boy, that's going to be a fascinating map. For those who don't know, Catalina, a map that has 3 spawns, and it is what is called rotational symmetry, which means that overall it's kind of like can be symmetrical if you divide it up into like a triangle, but the problem is depending on where you spawn versus your opponent, that is what can change the layout and the way that the map plays out, because sometimes you can spawn with your main base closer to their natural, and sometimes your main base is going to be further from their natural.
You make really great points and I agree with everything, but what you should really know is that it's based off of a K-pop song. 100%. That's why the octopus is in the middle of the map.
Yeah.
Map maker confirmed it. I'm just saying. Nah, but you're right. It's actually, it creates dynamic, different matchups, even within the same matchup in the same series, because of the way that you have to expand. Especially, like, you know, Zerg players sometimes go for that third expansion a little too quick when, like, oh no, I expanded towards my opponent.
Yeah, third bases on this map can definitely get a little bit hectic sometimes, especially since I think the third base locations, one of them can feel a little bit distant at times, especially if the Zerg player does decide to do one of those kind of pushes that Scarlett just did. You can catch the Protoss player
Acolyte.
out. But, okay, it looks like...
Carolina, it's Acolyte.
Yeah, we're going to go to Acolyte. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. This player up here in the top right-hand corner of the map, starting to pull the series back. Can she continue the momentum? Give it up for the pink Zerg player.
Team expert Scarlett.
And down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Protoss player continuing his dominating sweep. He just needs one more game. Put your hands together for...
Team Neeb.
Ooh, well then Acolytes. This is the, it was the last game of the last series, wasn't it?
Yeah, I do believe so.
Neeb got up to carriers, got up to 4 bases, actually 5 bases at the time that she tapped out, and she tried a Hydra bust, but the much later one maxed out with some infested Vipers and 3-2 as well.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
Yeah, but, you know, I really do feel like Scarlett could have played maybe, it's like we were talking about before, where if she had been able to get that damage done and then try and pull back, maybe she would have stood a chance, but there was also just a pretty scary looking army. Maybe Neeb just would have had too much with that big air toss, just moving straight across the map and building up that carry count. So it gets really, really dicey, and I almost wonder, Acolyte is one of the most macro-oriented maps. Maybe this is the map that you just try and turn this into the first game from that first original series, like Ascension to Ire.
Just turn it into the series that it was played on last time. Like, literally the same map, same build, same situation. Well, ideally for Neeb, not ideally for Scarlett. Scarlett does that one push on that last map. And that was a decently sized map, too, the last game. She could do it again here, but the complication is, of course, that the third base is still, that's where the choke is. The natural is a given. The third base is where the choke is. Force Field's actually busting that would have been a little more difficult if she had done something super early. But it is possible, I suppose.
Yeah. What about just moving in from different angles? Because the third base does have multiple like entry points. You don't have to move in through that one little ramp.
On this map?
On this map, yeah.
The third base?
Oh, sorry, not the third base, fourth base. Sorry.
Yeah, because that's what I was talking about.
That's where she was attacking into. Yeah.
Yeah, on the last series, I meant last game, she was able to attack a third with a big, you know, concave and actually like kind of threaten even his natural at the same time, but. Not an Acolyte. That's not going to be possible. So I'm kind of against the idea of her going for an earlier Hydra attack. But maybe she saw something in the last time we played an Acolyte where she'd only done X or Y a little bit faster. Would have gone better.
Okay, well, we are going to be seeing the Stargate thrown down once again from Neeb. I mean, I repeat this once again, but no surprises here. Neeb has shown how effective this can be, regardless of whatever the follow-up is going to be. But it seems to tend to be additional Stargates to be that follow-up versus Scarlett.
We had that one game where he went into Resonant Glaives and then a Dark Shrine and didn't really use Resonant Glaives. Like, that was a weird one. But his Warp Prism harassment was good and the Archon control was decent. He did lose it, but it was it didn't matter. That was the Interloper game, I believe. Yeah, which he took.
Okay, well, as we start to see the game getting underway, we have Neeb with that natural base just kind of saturating everything up, and Scarlett is going to have some good defenses against that early Oracle harassment. I don't think that the Adepts are actually making their way out this time, though. One Adept is out on the way across the map, and the other one is just going to hold position at that wall.
Okay. He might include 6 Adepts, right, and go for the Oracle attack, as he's gone for 2 of them a lot of the time. And we do have a Twilight Council, not more Stargates immediately, something that she might be able to scout to kill this Overlord.
Yeah, well, there's nothing really going to be able to kill that Overlord, like you said. So this Overlord is going to go uncontested for a while, potentially until maybe a Void Ray or something is made. But more often than not, it is 2 Oracles before you really get into anything else. But there is that Void Ray, and eventually be able to clean things up. The Overlord just kind of chilling by that Stargate for now, a little bit too content, could eventually get the Scout out. Well, Queen's pushing back the Oracle for now. The Spore Crawler being pretty effective, and there is that Overlord making its way gradually over to the main base and seeing, oh, additional gateways, holy cow. We're going to have a follow-up that's not just mass Oracles.
I mean, he's added gateways before, too.
Yeah.
Don't ever be too comfortable, Fear Dragon. But seeing the Twilight Council and the research that's going on, like a Chrono Boost on it, would be really good. And I think she barely would have... Oh, she veered off to the right, so I think she did see it.
We'll get the vision check from Endersword, and there it is, Twilight Council being scouted.
Very, very close, but yeah, that's it's a bit more difference, and having that Adept attack, you know, the 6 Adepts or however many, 7, 5, 6, with Resonant Englaives, is a little bit scarier, especially if they are paired up with any amount of Oracles.
Kind of interesting. We see Neeb going for the Stasis Trap harassment, something that you typically tend to do if you feel like you really just can't get any additional damage done, which is surprising. It's the first time I feel like we've really seen him do that against the drones, but he's going to be following this up with a lot of these Adepts and moving on in, and that Oracle won't actually have too much energy available due to that Stasis Trap.
If there was a 3rd base outside somewhere, well, on this map, then that would be a 4th base, right? He might have committed a little more. The Void Ray was kind of backing them up, and here are the 2 Oracles now, but actually shading in that deep on creep, where Scarlett's already seen Neeb, like, I think that wouldn't be the best use of his Adepts.
All right, a lot of Banelings finishing up, though, and that's going to make it really difficult for these Adepts to do a whole lot of damage. But behind this, Neeb has established that 3rd. He's getting up his gas guys. He's getting up his Robo as well as his Forward. So this is all about just trying to force Scarlett to make as many units and as many things to defend as possible while trying to get her to just overcommit to the defense.
Yeah, it's really true. I mean, that's a lot of Lings and Banelings, but more Adepts had joined up, so this is actually entirely needed.
Well, I mean, a lot of these Banelings do connect with the Adepts, but a good chunk of them also manage to survive and shade their way over into the main base. Going to try and get into that mineral line. The Oracle also helping out, but the Spore Crawlers pushing them back, and the Queen's going to be able to add that additional DPS. It gets a little bit dangerous here for those Oracles now, but the Adepts getting surrounded.
This hasn't really been that much. I guess it's so many Lings that have been made to deal with this, and it's just so much chaos getting into every single base. Following this up for Neeb is Charge. His 3rd base has already been established for a while now, so just rounding out the amount of workers that he's always wanted, which is like actually getting up to 70 right now, which is pretty good. And he's got the Mothership Core for the defense in case if those Adepts, all of them had been caught by the Banelings and the Lings, and there is a lot of them too. There's a good chance that they would have been. A counterattack could have done something, and maybe he's still even afraid of the counter.
Yeah, going for a nearly full pylon wall up over there. There's a small little gap where you can put a Zealot or an Adept or something there to hold position, but I guess he feels like he did a substantial amount of damage. I mean, he did reduce Scarlett down to just 45 workers not long ago. She's been able to drone back up a little bit, but man, she definitely has taken a huge economic hit and is continuing to take more damage.
Another Robo is coming down, and he is just like, it's really not going to be a game about Stargates. Not for a while, anyway. It's very different from last time we saw these 2 on Acolytes, going into what was definitely a typical PvZ a couple months ago, and even adding that Storm on now and the 4th base. Scarlett had to replace a lot of drones. It's definitely taken away from any timing she might have been able to hit otherwise with Hydras. So not only just building up that count while getting her own 4th.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be a game about firepower from Neeb and that ground army. He's going to be setting himself up with Storm coming up. The 4th base going to allow him to really power up on that economy with 76 workers. And as long as Scarlett has to continue to deal with his ground force as it is even kind of moving out around the map a little bit, she is going to have to continue to make more and more of these earlier game units like Lings and like these Hydras, and she's not really going to be able to get up those next answers.
It's something that I think that's been fallen out of the complaint list for a lot of Zergs. Like first, complain about Oracles, rightly so. Like, I mean, I say complain, but I mean worry about Oracles, and then you check that off and not going for that one. Worry about, I guess, quick carriers. Don't worry about that one. And then back to what you were worrying about months ago, which is actually just dealing with a mortal charge lot Storm Archon, like that really beefy army structure that still really needs to be dealt with either by out-positioning or Broodlords.
Yeah, it really does come down a lot to that because it's such a strong mid-game composition, and now Neeb has all of his warp gates finished up. He's got a bunch of these High Templars. He's got some sentries for force fields, and Storm has finished up. He's moving out across the map. He does he have a Warp Prism with his army?
Super dangerous, I would say. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, there it is.
If he actually makes his way across the map, gets maybe even another warp in to distract, then it's not so bad, right? And he even has force fields to help too. But I'm saying with the creep spread that Scarlett usually has, and just how small his army is and still really vulnerable to Banelings without any Archons and only a handful of Immortals, I just see those High Templars and I'm like, Banelings rolling from behind, man, and they're absolutely dead. But she is not prepping for an engagement yet.
Yeah, Creep has revealed this army moving forward, but the Warp Prism has an opportunity to move into the natural. Oh my god, those Banelings, though! Obliterating the Zealot count, even getting a Sentry fairly low on health. A Storm already being used. Scarlett finally catching a bit of a break. She's charging on forward. She's trying to seize the momentum, killing off some of these High Templars. Force Steel's being used to try and create some distance, but Scarlett has already taken a massive advantage off of that in an instant.
I can't believe how long that took as well, man. Those Zealots were right up against those Banelings. They both realized, like, wait a second, and then the pop went off. God, that was a beautiful destruction of Zealots. And a huge dip in supply for Neeb. If he had not been able to retreat, he probably just would have lost. The momentum was going to be really strong on her side, and she's going up to like Hive and Broodlords beyond that. That would have been fantastic. But surviving with the High Templars, going back to another warp in of charge lots, more Immortals as well. I think he's okay to defend.
I mean, that was a shot of adrenaline for Scarlett in this series. Now, she still may have a bit of trouble with this next wave of aggression. Yes, Neeb lost a lot, but that is still a very scary-looking army that is incredibly cost-efficient as long as you don't run your Zealots into those Banelings. That's the one caveat I think I would put on this. So he has to be very, very careful about this. The Banelings are going to be charging on down. Nice force fields, though, trapping out all of the Banelings, but only one of them gets picked up, and they make their way around. Zoo storming on top of those Banelings as well, trying to prevent them from connecting, and he does do so successfully.
That's a little bit scary for both sides. The force fields are very good, but then those Banelings were still rolling for a very long time. That actually does not go down, but the army doesn't have either of Neeb. A bit of a distraction tactic, an attempt at harassment doesn't go so well with this Warp Prism.
Yeah, picks up 4 of the Zealots and is able to get out of there for a little while. But behind this, he is trying to establish that 5th base and try and just rebuild up back that army. Remember that he does have to have some sort of transition point. Charge lot, Immortal Archon, and just having High Templars that can do really well in the mid game, but those Zealots really do start to see diminishing returns as you move later and later into the game. If you get closer and closer to max out, which you can see 191 supply, pretty damn close to maxed out, those Zealots just have trouble finding the surface area, and they have trouble avoiding those Banelings.
I'm really, I was going to say, I'm really surprised we haven't seen any Archons. He has enough Storms. He can actually afford to make a couple of Archons. I mean, their splash and the fact that, like, it's guaranteed, right? They won't whiff on their splash like Storm sometimes can.
Man.
And there's like their buffness, so they can protect the High Templars. Like, it's really usually pretty crucial to this army type.
Yeah, you know, I was talking a lot about Neeb getting caught on just having too many Zealots and everything and trying to sacrifice those out and trade them out for other supplies. He had the additional Stargate being added on, but Scarlett also just has an absurd number of Hydras right now, and she can still add on a lot of Banelings. It can still be a very strong composition, but there we go. Fungo growth being thrown down, catching that Warp Prism, shutting down the harassment on one side. Still has to deal with the Zealots on the other, though.
That is a lot of charge lots. Both of them banking quite a bit as they're expanding to their 5ths. Maybe even 6 soon enough. So while this is a lot of Zealots that don't end up doing too much, that bank is maybe worth the distraction if he was actually able to push up into that 4th.
Yeah, really nice job with Scarlett, by the way, on those upgrades, having +2 melee and +2 missile attack already compared to just Neeb with the +2 ground weapons, with +3 on the way, granted. But here we go. Oh, Scarlett trying to poach forward for an engagement, but Neeb saying no, not yet.
Yeah. You know, it's been a couple of minutes since they both had prepared for the late game. We had that high finish. We had the Spire and the Greater Spire made. Lots of upgrades coming in here. Same for Neeb. Neeb had gotten up to like a +1 attack for his air weapons and had gone up to Fleet Beacon. And there we see actually all the carries being produced. But it did take them a while to actually have those scuffles and get to what is going to be late game PvZ. So Air Army against Air Army. Who's going to win this one?
Well, it definitely gets a little bit dangerous with the Neural Parasite on the way as well. Scarlett's going to be prepared to try and get that mothership and try and prevent the recall, as well as also just remove the cloak ability, I think, for most of those Protoss units. But it will be a very difficult task, as of course these guys have faced off against each other many, many times, and they're aware of each other's tactics. I'm sure that Neeb by this point knows that is going to be a core part of Scarlett's plan.
And this is the exact map that in Montreal she was able to take a win off of. It was the one map that she took a win off of, and that was the one that she said that he had gotten impatient, which is apparently like a running theme, I suppose. But yeah, it didn't really look likely. You know, a lot of the Zergs are like, no way, she's going to win that one. And there was a crucial mistake that she capitalized on. I don't know if she can do that again, but that mass infester usage we saw in last series Ascension to Ire, she might be planning on going into again with more infestors on the way with Neuroparasite already researched. That would be interesting to see a duplicate of. You know, like one game, okay, like you can analyze that as much as you want, but you really need like an actual set of examples. So a second game would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think it would mean a lot for her, again, just in terms of momentum in the series as well. But Void Ray managed to sneak its way out. I think it's one of the early Void Rays that were made at the very beginning of the game, managed to sneak its way out. Might be a little useful later on, trying to pick off some of the Corruptors, or sorry, the Vipers or something, if we end up seeing those later on. But a lot of Zealots making their way up to the north side, or sorry, I should say the south side, while the Warp Prism is probably going to warp in some Zealots on the north.
Pretty dangerous. That was very confusing. I think it's a lot of charge.
Yeah, wait a
real.
second, this is a massive... No, it's not.
No, it's actually not enough to take care of all those spine colors either, but distracting, so the Warp Prism manages to successfully get into the main base from the very far left top corner. Could actually warp in and go for some crucial tech structures.
Oh,
nope,
or
nope,
not.
Just kidding. I just found it.
Nice reaction from Scarlett, able to handle that, and also doesn't really lose too much in terms of worker count. The spine crawlers go down, but you can easily remake those with that kind of mineral bank she's starting to build up, as well as that big gas bank she's got.
Yeah. Recently, they both invested their bank into the late stage, like all the upgrades, get all the upgrades, and all the air units they need, Brood Lords, Corruptors for her, and Carriers, and maybe Tempest later for him. He's also getting, I believe that's Warp Prism speed. One upgrade we say they don't get is Observer speed, because it just kills your Observers faster.
Yeah, that's at least my experience. Maybe Neeb is a better player than me. I don't know. It's just possible.
Perhaps, but I feel like that would just be universally good. Plus, in late game PvZ, it's actually not dependable on whether they're slow or fast Observers. You want regulation.
Well, Zealots getting taken out by the Spine Crawlers. Spine Crawlers actually handled these Zealots relatively well, but some of them not quite close enough, and eventually does make its way over to its own death.
Yeah, it charged to its own death. That was his fault.
Like every Zealot should.
Wow. Some of that Ascension to Ire game in their last series, there was a bit of a lack of harassment. There's a couple DTs that were warped in. But really it was the positioning and the actual engagements of their huge air armies, or I guess her huge infestor army. This time we might see a little bit more emphasis on the Warp Prism. We already have. There's already been 3 Warp Prisms, but even more so in the later game.
I also would say that compared to that Ascension to Ire game we had in the last time they faced off against each other, there's one big difference, and that's that Neeb didn't open up with a massive number of oracles. So he doesn't have stasis traps as that big defensive measure, preventing Scarlett from moving on in. I think that Scarlett has a much better opportunity as it moves into the later stages to get aggressive, but she still has to handle all this Warp Prism harassment, which is kind of Neeb's way of counteracting all of that earlier stuff.
Folks, got to be careful not to just get caught up in what could be potentially game-ending Zealot run-bys or warp-ins, and that's just a lot of minerals down the drain eventually. But wow, it's a very aggressive expansion, Neeb. You should.
Well, I actually like this because he's going to be pushing in with this very scary-looking army, and he's going to have a nice little recall point that's very close by, and he's going to be pushing along that angle, so it's almost protecting at the same time.
No, I absolutely love that type of move, right? This is especially bold on this map of the situation, but it makes sense. I'm just like, he should also take the bottom right, you know? Like, I don't think it's been scouted by Scarlett ever since.
Well, a lot of Zealots and a couple of DTs in the mix, but they scout out the Brood Lords and are going to be shut down very, very quickly, even keeping those Spine Crawlers alive since the Broodlings handling those Zealots handily. But now the Warp Prism moving into the in-base natural may make its way over to the in-base main, where Scarlett may take a bit of time to get some units to.
I gotta imagine at one point this 1-2 punch will work. The Warp Prism, maybe even 2 Warp Prisms to make sure they get into the main base. Gets a lot of tech structures killed, distracts her, and then he moves in with his main army when she's not looking.
I think you might be calling it right now, Zombie Grub, as a lot of units end up going down over there. But look at all of these Spore Crawlers and Spine Crawlers.
She feedbacked his own High Templar.
That's I mean, what do you even do against that? You try and move in with a handful of units, and suddenly the Spine Crawlers are poking away at your High Templar. You try and move in with a handful of I don't know, the carriers or something and try and protect those High Templar, and suddenly you're losing all your interceptors as Spore Crawlers.
What Nexus is this? Is this the Recall Nexus as well?
That's the wall-off Nexus, actually.
Oh my god, if he makes that a wall, I should
Trying to prevent the Ling run-bys, Zombie Grub. Remember Protoss?
Why make 4 pylons when you can make a Nexus here, Dragon? So much more health. It makes so much
It has
sense.
Chrono Boost. You can actually increase the production of carriers.
He's making Macro Nexus.
He's making a Mac. Artosis somewhere is smiling.
It's actually really confusing Nexus then. We'll see how it works out later on. I mean, maybe there is going to be a push down there and that Sim City works against Scarlett's. I don't know. But why not Pylons? Who would ever know?
I really do think that it actually is just a recall Nexus. It's a little bit closer.
But it's so close to the bottom.
I think even just, it's the extra even 5 or so seconds that you share or save, which can make the difference. When you have this kind of army DPS, 5 seconds is actually the difference between killing the hatchery and getting there right when your opponent's there to defend.
Wait, why 5 seconds?
Like 4 or 5 seconds closer than the bottom right-hand Nexus or something.
Oh, to her base. Oh, okay.
Yeah, closer to one of her bases if he tries to go for the snipe.
Ah, gotcha. Okay, well, I'm not going to... We'll ask him, I guess, later.
Yeah.
Is this really a good strategy? Is this really going to happen? It's going to be a new thing?
We'll ask him if he loses as well.
Yeah.
Hey, was that really a good strategy? Are you sure that was the right decision?
Just think about it for a second. What is...
Ooh, this is a very large run by Archons and Immortals. I mean, it's a ground force, which I guess he's maybe okay with sacrificing, but... Oh, okay, well, here's the big recall. Now he has the reinforcements over here. And Scarlett, I see a lot of her army up in the top left.
Yeah, it's going to be maybe a little... Nope, that's not enough for her actual base here. That was mostly Overseers.
Well, she is still trying to get the rest of her army over to this location. The Spore Crawlers and Spine Crawlers buying a little bit of time, but it seems like overall, Neeb, well, he is getting forced back a little bit. He's got a lot of these Immortals and Archons, but he's losing his army for sure.
Yeah, that was kind of awkward. He pushed in to so many Spines and Spores and left a lot of his other army behind, but he was looking for those beautiful Storms, which he ended up getting so many of, especially those last 2.
Well, carries need a little bit of time to regenerate some of those interceptors they lost to the Spores as well as his own Storms, but Narrow Parasite on one of those units, but ends up getting disattached.
That's too many Spine Crawlers.
There's no such thing as too many Spine Crawlers.
This is too many to deal with.
You know, these changelings should actually just hold position in front of the Spine Crawlers, and I don't think the Zealots will do anything.
Oh man, that's what my mind. Or the Spore Crawler should go in front. More people should SimCity with their Spine Crawlers.
Yeah. Oh my god, Neeb, a man after my heart.
Yeah, they do have Blink.
Neeb. Oh god, oh no, not like this, not like this. That was actually a substantial amount of gas from Neeb. He does still lead up in the gas count in terms of his gas bank, but that was pretty costly.
Wait, no, Overseers, come back.
Yes, it pays off.
Well, the Corruptors are still going to be on that.
I just want to note, if there were 12 DTs instead of 13 DTs or something like that, then that one DT wouldn't have survived. That made the difference.
Yeah, good thing he made so many DTs.
That's the important lesson to take away.
Yeah, it really, truly is. So, all right, looking at these engagements, that last one was like a little bit awkward because there was so much stacked defense and he was kind of getting like apart from his own army. But I still think it favored him with all those storms that went down.
Yeah.
Scarlett hasn't gone for the mass infestors again, really, right? I mean, I haven't seen the count of infestors, but as mentioned in an IR game, it was like 30.
That moment when you have enough Zealots to charge in on an Ultralisk and kill it. That's a little scary. Ooh, that's amazing revelation right there. Keeping an eye on all of those infestors is going to be a huge boon to Neeb. And also getting some DT harassment, trying to prevent additional bases from coming down, as the gold base is very rarely taken on Acolytes. Sometimes you almost forget that they exist, but it is going to be denied for a little bit.
That's what I was going to bring up when they took Neeb took the corner bases. I was like, why not take the gold? No one scouted it.
It's like this unwritten code that you just don't take the gold on this map.
Yeah.
Well, get some feedback down on something. Might have even been an Overseer.
Certainly a problem in the super late game is that harassment does get stalled out, especially in the game that they played on Ascension to Ire. There just wasn't a lot else going on. So whenever he would push into her, the Fungals would go down. Whenever she tried pushing into him, well, I guess she never really tried, right? She was the one that was always defending.
But I feel as though Neeb is the one that's just mining so much better. I mean, you just look at the map, and it's like a concave of Nexus. Mining, whereas Scarlett is this convex.
Concave beats the convex.
Always, even in mining.
Yeah, that's a good point, though. He's accrued a bigger bank. He seems to be in a better position. He seems to actually be getting these harassments that are distracting her. So he's taking okay engagements, whereas there's definitely a lot of stalemates that happened last time the situation arose.
Okay, might be losing a few units over here. The Mothership comes in with all the carriers, though, and is going to be able to push Scarlett back. Scarlett dropping a bit of supply over there. And remember, this is quite literally going to be a game about banks and who can just make their units trade a little bit more efficiently. Scarlett can still do this, but you can already see her mineral bank is more or less gone at this point. She's really has to get some more mining bases up.
Playing it very safe with that recall. Scarlett is making a lot more corruptors, still spreading that creep as well. She's going to take up the entire right side of the map. I think that's her plan. But War Prism's just constantly coming in here with War Prism speed. I guess she could put Spore Crawlers on the very, very top of that natural to try and deal with this, but...
Warp in 10 DTs. Do it, Neeb. Do it.
Whatever he warps in, he's going to get some important tech structure.
Okay, he's going to warp.
DT.
He warps in 1 DT.
Never mind. No, but they didn't get the War Prism.
Well, that Warp Prism is... I mean, who
yeah.
expects 2 Warp Prisms to be in the same place, Zombie Grove?
That let him make more DTs, because the problem was he was maxed out. Killing 2 supply in that Warp Prism, man.
There you go. And now he's going to be able to snipe off that Greater Spire.
Yes, that was the second.
And now he's going to go after the Ultralisk Cavern if these Zealots don't die.
She has to very carefully move back her army to deal with this. The Neeb's army is looking for more creep to clean up, more bases to snipe.
Oh, but all of these Corruptors end up falling back, and the Ultralisk Cavern is still going to end up falling. Now the static defense is getting taken out over here. Scarlett has built up another mineral bank of around 2K, 3K gas. But, oh god, losing the Broodlords, losing more of these Spore Callers. Neeb just seems to be taking better in trades.
Yeah, well, he's finding her not in a great position. You know, those carriers going forward like this. Yeah, this is exactly what should have happened, but the Vipers were late to the party. She was distracted by the harassment.
Oh, she needs to start killing some of these. Okay, she is starting to target fire them down, and killing off 4 carriers is a really, really big win. Revelation's coming down on top of some of those Infestors, though, so gotta be careful.
This is where she starts taking really good trades with those neuroparasites. If she's able to get them down, it's been a little bit more difficult in this game. She's also still being outmined by Neeb. She hasn't actually taken down any of his bases. And in fact, he took down her gold base and is now taking it. Like, he's building a home on her corpse.
That's a savage way of putting it. And I guess, you know, Scarlett, she's taking more efficient trades now, but she's got to do more of those until she depletes that bank of Neeb or gets up some more of her own mining bases. Because, like you said, she hasn't really ever been the one that's been very aggressive in many of these situations. And wow.
So many changelings.
Half changelings?
Prosnoptic. I actually forget what they're called.
He recalls from the changeling. I mean, he's recalling from the Corruptors, don't get me wrong, but he recalls from the changelings.
That's definitely what it looked like.
That's a scary Zealot army, I mean. What do you do against that?
It would be. But what happens as the game goes on? Oh god, that Nexus placement. What happens as the game goes on? She's taken like one or two okay trades of the Viper Abducts and a couple of good Neuroparasites, but Neeb has been able to just take control of this game in the way that he wasn't able to on Ascension to Ire, and definitely has been outmining her, which in that game he also was just kind of equally mining. She's down to 47 workers. Even if she had a lot of bases, she wouldn't really be mining very much.
What do you think about the, I guess, massive swell of Banelings that Scarlett has in her composition?
They kind of work out the same way as the Ultras, I think, which is that they take care of the High Templars as fast as possible.
That is true.
And like whether or not you can see them as well as manly detonate.
Yeah.
But they're also, in this case, I guess, going to be able to help out against the static defense, which wasn't really as overarching in their last super long 30-minute game as this one. He's actually going into Snoot versus Neeb territory, where the cannons are coming down in the middle of the map, so he can retreat to and slowly advance if she doesn't break in.
And he has the mineral bank to deal with that and try and push into Scarlett's territory, and Scarlett doesn't really have quite nearly as much of a bank. I mean, we just hit 5 digits, or sorry, yeah, 5 digits right now in the mineral bank for Neeb.
Good counting, yeah.
I can count to 5.
Yeah, great. It's a useful talent to have. 10,000 minerals is a lot. And he's going to get there maybe on the gas as well. Like, they really have not been fighting very often.
What's larger, Neeb's mineral bank or how much money he's won?
His mineral? No, actually, the amount of money he's won.
Still the amount of money he's won. Oh, really nice revelation. And, hey, gets the Mothership. That's a nice little victory. It takes quite a bit of time to actually make that, so that will halt Neeb's aggression. This may actually allow Scarlett to establish a base.
No, that's Neeb. Neeb's establishing that base.
No, I know that base is Neeb, but this may allow Scarlett to halt that and maybe establish her own base.
Yeah, well, she actually needs to. Even killing this base and taking this one again, it's already been mined out a lot. So she would need to take that gold base specifically. And I'm just surprised that Neeb's still thinking he's going to get away with it after being pushed back.
Ooh, he's actually going to try and contest this over here, but he's going to start to lose a good bit. Storm's going down on top of these Corruptors, actually doing a massive amount of damage to those Corruptors, but at the end of the day, some more of these Neural Parasites coming down on the Archons, and Scarlett is taking some pretty good trades here.
Yeah, she even got a couple more High Templars and Archons Neural Parasites, so she had Storm and Splash on her side. Takes the fight, and Neeb, well, he's going to be able to remax, but he needs the time to do that.
Yeah, I don't even think that he's really been able to find an opportunity to remake that mothership. He's remade the mothership core, but he now is finally going to be starting up that mothership, allowing him to get up that kind of recall ability that with more health points than just a regular mothership core. And Nexus is going to get taken out. Scarlett has an opportunity. Can she maximize the potential of it?
She really needs this base. Like, she's going to get into a problem on Acolyte, which is a big map. It has a lot of bases, but with Neeb taking them first and for a long time now, she's going to actually run out of minerals to take on the map.
Do you want to see her just double expand and just Spore and Spinecrawler up in mass with almost a majority of her bank that left-hand side, or do you think that's a little too risky? Oh, that's really nice. Sniping off the mothership core while it's turning into a mothership. Once again, resetting that timer and buying herself more time.
As far as your question, I'm not sure. I think Spines and Spores are just a little too expensive for her situation right now, and she's been doing pretty well, finally pushing Neeb back and having to deal with harassment. But as I say it, charge shots do come in here and kill that one base. It still has enough minerals that you would be sore about losing it.
Yeah, she will eventually get the cleanup on some of these Zealots, but it looks like the hatchery most likely end up falling. And again, every little bit of minerals really does count. This is all about cost efficiency at this point, and Scarlett doesn't exactly have a... I mean, she is literally an order of magnitude lower than Neeb's bank.
I guess she remade the Greater Spire, but she took her time getting back to an Ultralisk Cavern. That died a while ago. And that is always going to be a threat. With Neeb losing that army, I think that's actually what gave him the supply to go for harassment again, which he might do again, trying to go for those tech snipes. At some point, they're going to take a nasty trade, and maybe it's in Scarlett's favor, but it's not going to be enough to take care of 10,000 mineral bank. She would actually have to kill the army and then kill the production, which is technically possible, but going to be difficult.
Yeah, that is the part that is going to be the hardest pill to swallow for Scarlett, which she has to just snowball after a big victory with the engagements. Unless she is able to just, again, get up some mining bases and try and equalize on that bank that Neeb has. But catching some of these Zealots, again, these are still nice little wins. And man, that Spinecrawler wall is going to just shut down any Zealot harassment. So the big main army is going to be coming into that top left.
They're denying any mining at this point. It's just going to be brutal for her.
Is there a mothership now?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, unless it's coming up the road.
Not much recall potential then. This can get a little bit dangerous. Okay, mothership is a little bit further back, but here we go. The engagement is going to happen without the mothership. Corruptors spreading themselves out. Storm's going down on top of Neeb's army right now, and it's getting very low.
She just dominated. Well, she didn't dominate enough, I suppose. That was a really nice engagement that looked awesome, but the supplies are still even, and she has a much smaller bank to remax with.
Oh, but she kills the mothership, and you have to remember, a lot of those units, like carriers, take a very long time to produce. Some of the longest producing units in StarCraft, so there's still potential, but I don't... Okay. Great, what are you going to do with the Immortal now?
Kill the cannons!
She get Revelation, cool.
Nice.
Does Revelation stick around after the Neural Parasite expires? Thoughts for later.
Yeah, you can figure that one out again.
Zealots are going to try and get some counter harassment done. Again, this is all about just buying time for Neeb, because if he buys time, he can remake that entire army. He just spent about half of his bank right now in terms of minerals. His gas bank is starting to run a little bit lower, but if Scarlett gets a cleanup on all of these Zealots and keeps enough of her army alive, maybe she can make some magic happen, but man, that supply is just skyrocketing up right now for Neeb, as he's already up ahead in supply of Scarlett.
Well, I talked a lot about Scarlett potentially running out of minerals to even take as she starts taking these bases back from Neeb, but Neeb is also running out of minerals.
Yeah.
He's actually mined out most of his bases and is mining out even the gold at this point now, too. So, I mean, that's coming to the point where, like, he had a huge bank. That was his safety nets. But if he's taking really, really, really terrible engagements, then resources lost is what's really going to win the game.
This is getting really interesting. I'm almost waiting for the moment where Neeb is like, oh, ooh, nice feedbacks coming out from Scarlett, actually. New Repair saying another one. These fungal growths could be game-changing. She gets down a parasitic bomb as well and is able to take out so many of these Void Rays. They're trying to take on these Corruptors. Is there enough over here for Scarlett? It looks like she may almost have enough, but the Void Rays start charging up and start pushing back Scarlett momentarily. No, it just looks like there's a little too much on the ground for Scarlett.
This is actually really tough to call. The Void Rays, they last through a lot of fungals. They even last through a few parasitic bomb combos, which is exactly what happened. She thought she had enough Corruptors, but didn't quite. Now we have a few more coming in, but he had reinforcements coming for the Void Rays as well, and he still keeps the supply. She doesn't.
Oh, man, and the Prismatic Alignment is eventually going to wear off, so I think that's what Scarlett was trying to go for, try and move back in once the Prismatic Alignment was no longer there, and it's a really close trade between the two. Neither of them have banks anymore, Zombie Grub. I feel like we're back to square one in a sense, but Neeb is leading up almost 30 or 40 army supply.
Yeah, it's getting worse and worse. They're also at even workers, but she technically, at this point, I think has the healthier base. That's like the one thing that's going for, but it's very, very small. It's going to mine out pretty soon. Neeb has a stronger army.
Does Neeb have an opportunity to actually push into this base? There isn't really a whole lot of stacked defense over here. Some good fungal growths could once again really make this a huge difference, and even adding in some probes into the mix to try and absorb the hits from those Lings. Queen getting taken out very quickly, but here we go. Scarlett needs those money fungals once again. Does she even have any infestors left over? It's hard to see.
No, I don't think she has enough anyways. And even if they were fungals available, that's not a lot of damage. She needed a lot more actual damage to get rid of all of these Void Rays that has managed to build up. And well, this might be the final fight. Lings are actually just destroying the ground army. They are fully upgraded 3/3 regional lands, and that's most of her army supply right now, but they can't do anything about the Void Rays.
Yeah, Scarlett, unfortunately, is going to be losing all of her money bases. She has one infestor over there. She's got to be so careful with that. Oh, burrows it. Oh, was there no detection over here for Neeb? I guess he lost all of his oracles.
Yeah, the oracles have died. The observer.
No.
GG.
GG. Neeb is going to be your champion, taking the series 4-3, is now going to be the King of the North.
Yeah, finally getting his revenge.